Welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Toni, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar, and we are excited to have you with us. For those that don't know me, I got my start in this industry over 10 years ago as an independent contractor, back then known as an IC before it changed to an ISP. And I operated 4 separate CSAs across 3 states for several years. So I have unfortunately experienced many of the same challenges that contractors still kind of face today. And it's crazy for me to think about when I started, because when we were still working off of paper manifest and printed turn-by-turn directions, I always dreamed of when we would have something like ground cloud. The technology that we're going to show you today just simply didn't exist back then. There was no intelligent automation or real-time route optimization, and certainly no AI. Back then, I spent tons of hours manually adjusting routes and trying to solve problems with limited information, similar to what you all are still seemingly going through today, and why I became so excited about the GroundSwell product. I immediately realized it as a game changer for FedEx contractors, because one of the biggest challenges in our network today is the inefficiency created by DRO, now known as FRO. And I don't have to tell you this, but ISPs spend countless hours trying to fix route plans, reduce unnecessary miles, cut routes, and react to changes throughout the day, all while doing it with bad data. So if it feels like an uphill battle to be profitable these days, it's because your success hinges on inaccurate information that you constantly have to mitigate on a daily basis, and that's just not right. So what makes GroundSwell different is that it doesn't just stop at route construction. The product actually helps contractors manage their operation from planning all the way through execution with a nightly dispatch. It also has a turn-by-turn technology and real-time operational support. So of course, when I saw that this product could do all the things that it does, I knew it was a solution that every contractor really needed to see. And with that, I just want to say thanks again for you guys being here. Today, we're going to be joined by a really awesome group of speakers. First, you're going to hear from Jeff Corbett, the CEO of GroundSwell. Jeff will share briefly who we are, why GroundSwell was built, and how we're leveraging intelligent automation and AI to help contractors operate more efficiently and, more importantly, save money in a way that really no other product is doing in this space. Then you're going to hear also from Craig, our CTO, who will take us inside the platform for a live demonstration showing how GroundSwell optimizes routes, supports drivers with turn-by-turn navigation, and uses the GroundSwell agent to help ISPs make smarter and quicker decisions throughout the day. As questions come up, please drop them into the chat. We are going to be collecting them all throughout the presentation and then answer them at the end of each segment. We're also excited to be joined by our special guests, Brent Barnhart and Earl Adams. They're going to close out today's webinar by discussing something that a lot of people don't really know about, or if they have heard about it, they don't really know how to begin the process, and that is something called corporate credit. What is it? Why does it matter? How do FedEx contractors like you leverage it to improve either cash flow, create financial flexibility, or just better separate your business expenses with your personal credit, which in this space, I would say is a huge win. We've got a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right in. And Jeff, I'm going to turn it to you and let you in the studio.
Thanks, Toni. Always great to start off with the happiest person in the room. I'll do my best to follow up. Thanks for coming on today. I want to just share a few things with you from my perspective. I and my co-founders started Rising Tide in 2024 because we found some really serious issues with the way last mile delivery and route-based businesses were run from a margins perspective, meaning that it wasn't profitable to run those businesses the way that the current technology at that time was doing it. So we set out to really make a difference, and we feel like we have. We were in many different verticals in 2024. At that time, we met some of our first FedEx contractors and learned about the FedEx contractors. The ISPs had the same issues that many of the other last mile delivery companies had, except that they were exacerbated by the volume and the lack of ability to really work as a team together to solve problems. Rising Tide is built on the notion that you can have shared benefit and work together to aggregate solutions to improve everybody's well-being. That is why when we deployed in the FedEx market, we made the decision to have a completely dedicated FedEx product called GroundSwell. It's something that we share with no other industry, no other vertical, no other company. And that is the only product that Rising Tide has made or will make for any other vertical, meaning it's completely focused on what the needs of this industry are and this group of people. The Groundswell bases on three main pillars. Those are intelligent automation. So intelligent automation is the AI that we use to build routes nightly. And then we added in a turn by turn that goes into the actual trucks and it manages the in-truck operations. That data about stop durations and the routes being used and all the information that we can get from there goes back into the intelligent automation, which gets better and better at routing. The third pillar of the solution is what we call the GroundSwell agent. That is an actual AI engagement that you would have on our platform to learn about your routes, to change your routes, to manipulate the data, to make changes within our software so that you don't have to relearn how to use software. PRO, FRO, and the things that you already have are difficult enough and maybe not very intuitive. So our purpose all along has to make this very easy for you to use. But it's not magic. AI is really on the frontier basis right now. We're really just beginning to discover what we can do, but it's clear that it comes in an iterative way and incrementally, and that we really are better off when we aggregate that learning. So it's very important to always communicate. So you'll have the ability to communicate with your platform, you'll have the ability to communicate with our team, and you have the ability to communicate with each other on our Slack channel. So we're high on communication. We're very excited about what we have. We're very excited about the things that will continue to roll out this year. We're very grateful for the progress that we've made and for what we think is coming. And with all that done, I'm going to stop talking now and hand it over to Craig, who can give you some actual things to see.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. So I'm Craig Huber, one of the co-founders as well as the CTO, and just a little bit of quick background on me. I've got about 30 plus years of experience in technology, formerly an executive at Dell as well as Walmart. And then more recently, before joining forces with Jeff, I was the CTO of a last mile big and bulky delivery provider that was nationwide. So very familiar with the space, very familiar with the challenges. Obviously, FedEx has its own nuances, but I thought we have a good product here that I want to start to walk through a quick demo of. So I tend to think about the current FedEx process as sort of three phases. It's the night of, where you're sitting in DRO, FRO, doing your nighttime planning, trying to understand who's going to be on the road tomorrow, what type of package volume do we have? And then there's the morning of a loadout, where you're dealing with perhaps some IC challenges or drivers not showing up, sort of the morning in the station, getting ready to go. And then there's the in-truck operations, actually executing the delivery of the packages. So as we break those apart, what I'm going to show you a little bit about today is the nighttime dispatch and then the interactivity during the day. But as we know, the only levers that you really have are to cut costs. Really, FedEx is giving you a set volume typically, and we're here to help you reduce the mileage on your trucks, help you to gain some automation. So you're not spending an hour or two or however long your BCs are spending a night working with DRO. And then leverage our algorithms to make sure that you get the best sequencing, hit those time criticals for 2.0, and do what you need to do. So let me share my screen here and get into the platform. Okay. If anybody can give me a thumbs up on that one, everybody seeing this okay? I'm going to take that as yes. Okay. So as we mentioned before, one of the things that we try to do is save you a lot of time. So maybe one of the first things you'll notice here is the next scheduled run. One of the things we do with all of our customers is an automation at night. So we'll determine when the best data accuracy is coming from DRO. And I know everybody we've talked to complains about the accuracy in DRO. So what we do is we still are dealing or sort of riding on top of DRO to automate it. So we're finding the best time of the night where DRO has the best data. So in this case, might be 10:15, and it's basically going to automate the run on top of DRO. Now we can also do this multiple times a night if that's what you want to do, because we have noticed sometimes where things will significantly change. throughout the night. So we have the ability to run as many times as you need to throughout the night to make sure that we give you the best possible results. So you will see a lot of similarities to DRO in the sense that you're going to see a map. You're going to see this is the stops from today. But some of the other things that I'd like to show you as we go through the sort of the configuration or the reason why we exist is we're trying to give you, instead of having to go in every single night and move stops around saying, I want to pull it off this truck because they're too large. I want to maybe reorganize a couple of areas because Joe's out sick. We can do all that automatically. So when we onboard you and you go through the demo, you go through the configuration process with us, we'll set up the configuration. So if you have preferred driver locations, let's say, for example, you want your driver to generally stay in this area, but it's okay if they float around a little bit to pick up slack from the other areas, that's fine. So we have these essentially configuration calls where we will learn what it is you like, don't like, and then help you automate and transform to a more dynamic routing system where you can actually reduce a truck or reduce mileage by, as we've seen, about 15% or more. So let's go through a few other things. So what you'll typically see from us as we start off with somebody brand new is we will bring in existing anchor areas from DRO. So you get a sense for, you can start moving with us to be as static as you'd like, and we can take over your automation or take over DRO and automate the process. And then over time, if you say, you know what, I don't need these anchor areas to be as hard lined as possible, and I want, to take out a few areas and let these dynamically flow, that's not a problem at all. So we can start to an area where the entire CSA is dynamic on a day-by-day basis, or you want to consistently stick in one area for a particular vehicle. One other thing I want to share with you, we have a lot of different configurations when it comes to geofencing. So, for example, this area is very dense to get through and high traffic area. You can actually go in and change all sorts of different things on a particular geofence to say, all right, well, for example, in this case is a little bit probably too big. Actually, let's look at Virginia Union. This is an easier example. If I wanted to draw a geofence around Virginia Union, there's probably a bunch of different addresses in here. I have a couple of different things that I can say, hey, I want this entire area to be supported by one particular driver. Another interesting thing that we do quite a bit is draw a geofence around the whole thing. Let's just say there's 100 addresses in here. In DRO today, you might have to do address overrides for every one of the addresses in here to do a specific thing. But let's say I want to be able to move which truck Virginia Union University goes onto. But if you're going to move those stops around, make sure you move the whole thing. So all of these addresses will still move to one vehicle or another. Again, I'm hitting a lot of these things at a very high level, but we have a lot of configurations. And quite frankly, we haven't seen anything more recently that we don't have a solution for. Let me go through a few other things here. I think one of the things that we've seen a lot of people moving to 2.0, we now have the ability to show time criticals on the map. So for example, in this case, we have a configuration that says we have basically 3 different time critical windows. So anything before 10:30, anything between 10:30 and 3, and anything that's a time critical that's afterwards. So for example, this one, let's see where we got. So this has to be delivered by 5 p.m. So you can kind of take a look at any one of those. We have a couple of the later ones. So we have some different arrival windows there. While we're here, I think there's another interesting thing you'll notice. This was the run from this morning. Let's look at something that is slightly overlapping. Like you might have something here. What you'll see for every one of these stops as we're doing our sequencing and routing is you'll see why it was moved. So generally speaking, if you have an anchor area that's this green, for example, you'll see a bunch of red dots coming from 547 in. So they're taking care of things in this general anchor area, and that's because of the efficiencies typically. So closest alternative route is less efficient, so it chose to put it on a different route. So we have quite an extensive set of algorithms and machine learning and artificial intelligence that goes into figuring out what is the absolute best sequence in routing. A couple of the other things that I will show on here, we have the ability to show commercials. So let me turn off the time criticals. So a lot of our owners are looking at, hey, I would really like to maintain a commercial set of routes, or I at least want to know where my commercials are, because typically commercials will take a little bit longer to actually deliver or do pickups from. We have a customized AI that does not just say each stop is 75 seconds and everything's the same. We look at a bunch of different factors that determine how long it will actually take to actually deliver or pick up any one stop. So for example, is it a commercial, residential? What's the weight? What's the cube? How many packages? Do you have any overrides? So for example, we can set overrides on any particular area. Say you have an Air Force base that you want to draw geofronts around. We can actually say every stop within that Air Force base is going to take 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 2 times the normal time that says it's going to be a lot longer. Or you can say every time I go to this particular commercial stop, it takes me 10 minutes. So I can set an override that says every time I go here, it's going to take 10 minutes. And the routing algorithms will take all of that into account. Jeff, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to touch on here as I'm going through this.
Yeah. So, one of the things I hear a lot is I want to be able to just isolate one route and see one route because there's a person I particularly am interested in doing. Can we do that in here?
Yeah. So we can turn off. So there we go. So I'm taking on one route. The other thing we can do while we're here is we can do sequencing. So you can actually still show the sequence. You can actually show the path of travel as well, which I know also exists in DRO. But one thing that they don't do is I can actually show the entire CSA if you want at one time. So you don't have to look at just one route at a time. And it's pretty snappy as you go through it.
And so on that, like the individual route thing, Craig, what about like the ability to say, can I set up a commercial only route? Or the flip side is, can I set up an only residential route? Because sometimes when people have a new driver, they want to have just a residential route, which might be easier for them to accomplish. Does GroundSwell allow us to set up a residential only route or something?
Yep. Yeah, it sure does. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, each one of these vehicles in this particular case has a bunch of different configurations. And obviously you have the typical things you'll see: capacity, dispatch, thresholds. So actually this is something that DRO doesn't necessarily have. We have the ability, again, everything is built to be dynamic. We built this system to be dynamic, whether it's day, week, or weekends, to not think about static plans so that we're always giving you the best possible outcome that you could have. So we have dispatch thresholds that basically say, we will not send this truck out unless it has at least 20% full, because in many cases, when you're running your trucks, you need to have a certain amount of revenue per truck to make that even a worthwhile trip. So we can actually set that up for you to say, it just won't run. If it's not going to be profitable, don't bother running it. We'll find a better way. But to answer your question, Jeff, yeah, you can basically set up capabilities to do anything you want. If you want to do bulk vehicle capabilities or AVP vehicles, or you want to just do commercials, or you just want a particular truck only does deliveries or a particular truck only does pickups, not a problem. So we have all that flexibility.
I'm wondering if this isn't a good place for us to transition into maybe talking about one of the other two pillars, because I can see some questions already about how some of these routes are put together. And I think that the turn by turn obviously would be something that would go into that a little bit.
Let's talk about that. So first step that you'll do today is we have two modes essentially that you saw me click on this in truck. So plan mode is, as I mentioned the night before, it's what we're locking in the stored plan. It's what DRO's pushing up to the terminal. But as you all know, many things change in the morning. So between stored plan and manifest lock. So essentially the in truck is coming from FCC. So what you would typically do in this case, and then we'll talk about some of the asks we have of you in a few minutes, but right now we're basically importing from FCC. So this was as of this morning, but this is manifest pull from FCC. So it's the same thing you would see in any other system. And you also see there are going to be some differentiation between planned and in truck. I don't know if anybody noticed, but there were 13 routes in planned and 15 in truck. Likely, as I'm looking here, is that they added a commercial extra route and overflow. I see this purple route here. So we'll take into account anything that you would choose to do in the morning, saying, hey, we need, extra volume came in, or we have a bunch of new pickups or something else, kind of had some chaos. Maybe there's a snowstorm, who knows what, right? New truck came in. So again, we're going to take all that into account, pull it into here. And then this is what your drivers will run. So let me flip over to the mobile app here. Okay. So on the mobile app, this is what your drivers will see typically. And we tried to make this as simple, as intuitive, as straightforward as possible. So you'll come in and obviously you'll sign in first, but you'll come in and you'll hit routes. And essentially, if you're assigned to the route in GroundSwell, you'll automatically get assigned here. So there's nothing you need to do. This is going to give you your drivers, or in this case, all right, here's all the packages that I've got or the stops that I have. This is the manifest view that's going to show up first. So this allows your drivers to essentially, if they want to reorder a stop and say, I don't like the way this is doing, it may be counterintuitive to the sequencing, but their drivers will have at times a good reason. One of the things that we've seen a lot is all of a sudden they drop a bunch of tires on the floor in the back of the truck, and you need to get those tires off the truck before you can actually do anything. So we have this ability to say, hey, move this to the start. I happen to know that this one is a Costco or something, and I'm delivering a bunch of tires, so I can actually just drop this to the start. So one of the interesting things about this too, and something to keep in mind, every interaction that a driver is making with the driver app is making our system smarter. So if we see repetitive things where they keep sending Morrison Road up to the front, gives us insights into something is wrong with the logic. There's a reason why they keep doing it. It might be just because that's the way they like to do it, but it's more likely that there's something else that either DRO isn't sending or we're not seeing. So we have the ability to take those things and learn from them. So let's go ahead and just get started here. And I'm just going to walk through, again, a very simple version of this. Let's start. I'm just going to do a quick simulation here that I'm running in the background. So we just have a simple 1, 2, 3 stop here, but let's just say I don't really want to go to the stop right now. I kind of need to go get some food. So there's a Wawa right over here. So I think I'm going to go to there instead first. So it'll actually reroute me, and you can see there's the Wawa sitting right over there. So basically, I'm also capturing all of this, right? So again, all of this is taken into account to understand if they take a 5-minute break, how does that shift the ETAs for everything? One of the things that our mobile app is doing, every event that happens, whether you're arriving at a stop, you're delivering a stop, you're managing an exception, you're going, taking a break, is reevaluating the entire sequence, right? So imagine you have all those time criticals. Let's just say, okay, it's 1:28 p.m. right now, and you have a couple of time criticals at 3 o'clock, right? If you end up taking a half an hour break, the system will figure out, I still have enough time to continue the sequence as is, or I may not, and I need to reroute and still do the most efficient, but hit those time criticals. So it's constantly thinking about, what do I need to do to make sure I meet those? Let me go resume route here. And then I'm just going to do a simple, what you'll see when you've arrived at the stop, you've got the packages ready to go. You're basically just clicking arrived. This is your tracking ID, your SID information. And essentially this is all you need to do, but you can also always add a note, right? So these notes also hang along with the delivery as well as the address. So if there are things that you start to notice about a particular address, meaning like the mailbox isn't actually at the front, it's all the way at the back. So you can make a note, but also interestingly, we've seen this a lot with, let's say again, Walmart's great. You know, most of the time, the Walmart, the location of the Walmart is the front door of the Walmart, but you're not delivering to the front door of the Walmart, you're going around back. So one of the things our system does is it look at every time, this is where we think the actual address is, and this is where your drivers keep saying the address is. We have the ability to actually shift that over. We also have the ability to have it automatically do that, or have some sort of human in the loop so that a manager needs to approve that before that actually happens. They've got a lot of built-in AI functionality to make this work easier and easier as your team continues to use it.
Hey, Craig, so if I could just jump in for a second. One of the things that we hear a lot about the apps and the turn-by-turns that are out there right now, which are good at what they do, but it seems like probably insufficient for some of the people that are moving to 2.0. Like, doesn't our app, or maybe you could help me, aren't we able to like not just resequence, but we do it sort of in a gentle way so that you don't get all of those miles that you see in some of the other apps where they have to come out of route to go get 1030 and then come back? It's not, say, aren't we going past just telling you, hey, you know, you're gonna miss this stop, but actually gently moving you that way and then making the miles back into your route more productive?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Yeah, most of what we've seen, again, from when DRO or Ground Cloud will run you across town to hit a stop, and then basically you've got dead miles coming back. So we are, like I said, it's hard to show this on a particular route, but we are absolutely every time looking at, if you've got, actually, you know what, let me jump back into and I can show it maybe more clearly here. This might be easier to just kind of pick something. Let's say, for example, you're down here in this particular spot, and all of a sudden you get, it doesn't even show you an alert that you're going to miss a time critical. I guess that's the other thing. It just does it for you. If you have the ability to say, all right, I still have time between here and here to pick up some other stops and then pick up some of these others on the way back and still make that the most efficient, that's what it's going to do. It's not going to send you from here all the way. Let's just say this is your stop one, this is your stop two. It's not going to send you all the way to this stop to hit the time critical and then send you back here to two, because that's stupidly inefficient, right? So we are always going to look at, well, maybe since I have to send you up here, now I'm going to do is weave my way back this way, right? It is always looking at every single time you deliver something, is this still the most efficient route? We had always talked about sort of the water main break. And let's say, this is your 1, your 2, your 3, and maybe this is your 4. And all of a sudden this particular road is out of commission, right? So what do I do? Well, I can't get to number 4 here. So maybe I go back to and start looking, and this is what the algo would decide, is maybe I start to do 4 or 5 and I check again, is this one still value, or can I still get here or not? I can't get there, and it will continue on, and maybe it eventually works its way around to the other side of the street to get to this, right? But it's always looking at traffic. It's always looking at events. It's always looking at time criticals and what is the most efficient way that I can make sure you meet those time criticals and still meet it within the mileage range that you're trying to hit. Okay, so let's talk and maybe move over to the agent a bit. And this is sort of the coming soon. So one of the things that I've noticed specifically with DRO, and I'm sure you have if you spend any time in there's a lot of ways to solve a problem, but they don't really give you a great, like, here's how you do it. This is the problem I'm having. Here's what I'm trying to solve. So what we tried to build our system around was kind of two things. Is we do have the ability to go into the typical things, like I can go into the fleet and I can look at a particular vehicle, or I can just look at sort of overall status capacity. I can go into my drivers, schedules, whatnot. But we're also trying to build out an agent that, depending on how you like to interact, we can do either way. So let's just say, for example, you got a truck that's out of rotation, right? Sure, you could go into the fleet table and you could disable it, but here you have the ability to talk to the system. Now, this first one's a little bit of a hit to load everything in, and we're constantly improving this, but this is kind of the experience that you'll get. Anytime that we're making a change to the system, we're going to ask you for confirmation. If you're just asking to look something up, we likely won't. So it's out of rotation. Should come up here with a second. Okay, set Kenmar to out of rotation, so we can actually just go look at the fleet table, and you'll see that it's out, now unavailable. So I can go back and just say, hey, you know what? Major non driver aid mistake. Available. And that will probably, ask me, it's ready for dispatch. Sure, sounds good. Let's just see where all of my vehicles are. Are they all available now? And my guess is going to say no, because I'm actually driving a route. So it should tell me that most of them are available, but not all of them. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So this was the actual route that I was showing you on the mobile app. So you can actually talk to it this way. I guess the other thing that is kind of alluding to what DRO doesn't do is, let's just say you're just getting started and you're not really sure how to do something. You can say, where do I adjust my fleet? I could spell right. And what we're trying to do here is hook everything into the UI. So essentially it popped up the fleet table. It says, I opened up the fleet table in your manager portal. This is where you can adjust, add, update vehicles to your fleet. All right. So this is kind of give you a sense of where we're going with this. This is going to get better and better every time you use it. One of the things I was thinking about as I was building this flat tire scenario out is, sure, you could have a maintenance program, right? You probably have some other software that's deciding or watching, like, oh, this, I had my car washed, the oil change, or my truck's washed, or I had the oil change. What you can do here too is it's keeping track of your session in your memory. So when you're talking to the agent here, it's keeping track of everything that you've done. So 3 months from now, you can basically go back and say, how many flat tires have I had? And it's actually going to use the AI to determine when you were talking to it, this is what we have. It was one flat tire on Kenmar 1, right? So you're going to build more and more trust in your system and more value from the data that you're inputting it alongside of, every single day I've had this many routes. I did this much mileage. These are my ETAs. You'll start to build a data set of your entire CSA, right? So I don't know if there's anything else, Jeff, you wanted me to hit on the agent, but it's kind of giving you a preview of what's coming.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the direction that we want people to understand is it's natural language. It's not a new system to learn. What we're trying to do is make it easier for ISPs to run a business, not to learn a new software, but actually to run a business. And the technology is there. Rising Tide and GroundSwell are deploying it in a way that makes sense for everybody. There's some finance stuff to get to help everybody. But I think that there's some really good questions, some of which we covered a little bit, but maybe not in a way that made sense for everybody because we just dumped a lot of info on you. And I do want to say, I think this is correct, that after this, you'll get an email from us letting you know how to schedule a demo, how to get onto the Slack so that you can get more of this stuff for free. We are not here to charge you for everything. We're here to build something with you, and it's going to get better and more valuable for all of us if we continue to work together. So Toni, if you don't mind, maybe we should just hit some of these questions real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to be mindful of everyone's time and also to get to the part about corporate credit from Brent and Earl. Yeah, let's knock some of these out. So the first one comes from Josh. He's talking about in reference to how long a particular stop should take based on the historical data and our specific routing algorithms in the GroundSwell product.
Yeah, so the answer is yes, partially. So the historical data is only one piece of the puzzle, right? As we all know, things are changing. You're getting more and more volume each year. So yeah, we look at WAP data as a starting point, but we move from that based on what you're actually doing.
So I'll add on to that, Toni, really quickly. When we first started, the first CSAs that we worked with back in late 24, early 25, it was taking days and weeks for us to do all this because we were really still learning. But we built some very strong technology around the onboarding process too, which is also AI driven. So a lot of what Craig is taking, it does go in and get historical data. But remember, there's 3 pillars and they all learn off of each other, right? And what's really cool about this thing is unlike most of the other technologies within the FedEx ecosystem, these things are connected, they're embedded, and they're learning. So that turn by turn that Craig was showing you, that actually feeds the information back to the intelligent automation product at night that builds better routes. So Josh, what you're talking about is yes, we're not going to build routes based on the 75 seconds that DRO gives it. We're going to base it on the real time dwell that you have at that place, and it's better.
But this is an important one because we've talked a lot about driver performance, right? Managing driver performance factors is what we have the ability. So we basically say, if your average is, let's just say 75 seconds, and you have a brand new driver who's learning the ropes, there's a multiplier that says on average, they're going to be, 2 minutes, right? And then gradually you'll reduce that time so they're on par with everybody else. So we're taking in as much data as we can to make sure that is the most accurate number. It's unlike ground cloud and or DRO, it's completely static in both of their worlds.
It builds those routes, Toni. It builds those routes, especially important for 2.0, because our system will do time balancing to make sure that it constructs a route initially that is not going to fail, right? And on a time perspective. But then as it learns more and more about those individual stop durations, it's going to get better. And that's the data coming from the turn by turn. All right, what else do you got?
Yeah, this Josh asked a follow-up to that, and we answered some of that in Craig's answer and some of yours, Jeff, as well. But he said, I'm just going to read the whole question. He asks, regarding the routing and how it's calculated, is it based off SID numbers, time commits, or bulk? And then what takes priority? Also, if there is a time commit that was sorted to the back of the truck and GroundSwell tells the driver to break off and get that package delivered, does it then take them back to where they previously were en route, or does it continue on in the same section where the time commit originally was?
Yeah, Josh, I'm going to answer this as best as I can, but I would suggest let's have a follow-on discussion because you have some really good questions here. But essentially, it's not based off of the SID because we're ahead of the SID. So we actually help DRO create the ordering. So the SIDs are generated after this. So that's number one. The second thing is, how is it calculated based on time commits, bulk? It's all of the above. So depending on how you configure your system, if you want bulk pulled off to another truck, we can do that. If you want bulk preloaded because you want them floor loaded, we can start all your sequences there. So you start with sequence 1 with all your bulk stuff that needs to get off the truck that's like floor loaded. Time commits, same thing. We're looking at the whole ecosystem of what do you have to deliver tomorrow, and this is the most efficient way based on the rules that you want to set up. Hopefully that helps. I guess to the back of the truck, to the GS tells the driver, that's exactly what I was talking about before. That's how DRO does it. Tells you to break off and then come all the way back. We don't do that. So first of all, you're only going to break off if that is the last possible resort. But usually what's going to happen is it's going to deviate you to move you in that direction and continue to deliver stops along the way, because that's the most efficient way. And then once you've delivered that time commit, it's going to continue based on where you are right now and weave you back to make sure it's the right way. It's almost never going to send you all the way out and all the way back, because that's almost never going to be the right, most efficient way to do it. So that's kind of the way we look at it is, again, everything you have left to do, what's the best way to do all of it, not go take care of that one thing and come back. So we're always looking at the whole pie.
And that's all, Tony, that's the resequencing part of it. So it's important to understand that unlike the other solutions out there, ours does not push something and then forget it, right?
Yep.
It's embedded, so that we call it infinite loop routing, but that turn by turn is still using the intelligent automation to figure out what's the best thing for me to do right now. Yep. So it's not just going to say, this is all I can do. It's going to say, what can I do? And then it's going to make the best of what's available right now. So that's really important to understand that it's the only one that actually embeds everything together.
And I think that goes into Ron's question, and we'll just touch on this really quick. Let me actually just backtrack for a second. Alex asked if we can share contact for AOs that are currently running GroundSwell, and would they be willing to have a discussion? Alex, the answer is yes. Also, when I give Brent and Earl a chance to speak, I'll link a YouTube video of a woman named Jessica Easler that actually is deploying GroundSwell currently. She is cutting a route consistently every day, and in some cases 2 routes a day. We also have some customer advisory board members that were the first users of GroundSwell that can also speak on the behalf of GroundSwell, the benefits and how it's been in regards to an experience for them. So I'll get that to you. I'll send you an email since I have your contact information. But just to circle back really quick on Ron's, that feeds into the previous question from Josh. He's asking, when they get the direct volume injected into the terminal overnight, like the trailers, right? Yep. Which isn't accounted for in FRO when they run the plant at 9 or 10. How does GroundSwell help avoid the morning chaos or flexing that they have to do in the account for the unforecasted volume? Like, what's the workaround and the solution for that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and probably the same one that's on everybody's minds. The one thing that we've learned is just FedEx doesn't give you the right data. I mean, it's just flat out, they don't, which is unfortunate. So we found some workarounds. We found some ideas to make it easier. It's not perfect because, again, we're living within the DRO world of what they give you. But one of the things I mentioned earlier is we will do an exercise with you to find, let's say your planning window is open until 3 a.m. We will find the most optimum time to run it. So while you may be running at 9 or 10 because your PC's comfortable doing it, then that may not be the best time to actually run it based on the data quality. So with our automation, if your best time is 1 a.m, that's fine, because we can automate the process of 1 a.m. and get you the best results we can. And we also have some other ways or mechanisms to give you a little bit of extra float, depending on how bad your terminal is, because we've noticed that some terminals are a bit better than others. So during that analysis, we can help you figure out how far off you are.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for the questions. Craig, I'm going to take you and Jeff off and give Brent and Earl some time to discuss the importance of what is corporate credit, why is it necessary, how does it help contractors today, how many contractors they've helped use it, and just high level how they can get involved with beginning the process. So Brent, I'm going to bring you on. If you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Earl, I'm going to bring you on as well. Jeff, I need to take you off.
Wonderful. Hi, Toni. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know that corporate credit seems kind of like a doozy to a lot of contractors. If they have heard about it, they don't know how to deploy it. Sometimes, in a lot of cases, I found that they don't even know what it is and how it's applicable to them. How does it differ from personal credit? That's all they're aware of that they can utilize in this space. And I think that this is a game changer for a lot of contractors to insulate themselves from a lot of the fears that's going on with the ever-evolving changes and financial issues that they're having in such a volatile market right now. So I feel like corporate credit is something that they can leverage to really, again, insulate themselves from getting taken, essentially, if things don't work out in their operation. So if you could just kind of high level and then maybe a little intricacies that you think will be beneficial and just track with the contractors. And thank you, Brett, for joining us. I know you're on the road. Hopefully you're safe from the storms out there. And I will hush and let you guys talk.
All right.
Well, thank you for that. Brent, do you want to open, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll open it up.
So Brent's
you can
having
hear me?
technical difficulties. He's out there on the road. Look, I've been in business for 37 years. I've built every single business the exact same way, which I call the lemonade stand method, where you buy some lemons, you buy some sugar, you add some water, you sell it, you take your profits, and you buy more lemons. And you rinse and repeat. Eventually, you get your buddy John and Mike to open up lemonade stands, and you tell them you'll supply the lemons and the sugar for the lemonade, and you'll just take a little piece of it. So you invest in that, like we all do in business. We use our own money. The problem is it rains sometimes and lemonade isn't selling, but you've already leveraged your own personal assets, your own money in the pursuit of building a lemonade stand. Now, that's a small metaphor, right? What we really do in business, which is we go into business, whether it be trucking and transport or whatever business you can possibly think of, and you have a budget. You have X amount of dollars that you plan to expend, and then X amount of dollars that you plan to invest with, usually by the way of credit and usually tied to you personally, because most of us don't know any better. So we use our own personal credit, which is tied to our social security number, to start gaining things for our business, right? We're buying fuel, we're personally guaranteeing trucks and trailers and equipment or sundries, whether it's a retail business or whatever, but we're using our personal credit. The problem is, just like in the lemonade stand analogy, is sometimes it rains and sometimes you can't make those payments. And when that happens, just like the other 600,000 businesses per year that shut down, you're all of a sudden stuck with a lot of debt that was associated with business now applied to you personally. And it's totally unnecessary. There's something called an EIN number, which is your employee identification number, which acts just like a social security number, but for your business. And just like your social security number, there's a method to the madness of building credit on it. And you can build credit on your EIN, except you can build it about 10 to 100 times faster than you can on personal credit and get 10 to 100 times the actual credit, because the idea behind business credit is you need a lot more of it than a person does ever personally, meaning you're probably not going to buy 500 gallons of diesel personally, but you might if you own a business and you're operating on diesel. What you don't want is a fuel card tied to your social security number. You want it tied to your EIN number. So for years, Brent and I have been helping businesses build business credit on your EIN so that you do not leverage your personal assets, your home, your car, your 401k, your own bank accounts in the pursuit of building your business. The problem with those 600,000 businesses that shut down on average every year, 85% of them are left with around $100,000 worth of debt, not because of something they did personally, but because the business went sideways. And now they've got to encumber that on top of already losing their business. And it's wholly unnecessary. When you're in business and you want to go get big money for your business, you need business credit. And the idea that you can just go out there and because you have a business card or a credit card that has your business name on it and you're building business credit, that's just not true, because 97% of the people who offer business credit don't actually report to the business credit bureaus, which is Dun & Bradstreet, Business Equifax, and Business Experian. Suffice to say, if you don't know who the 3% are that actually report to business credit and utilize them in your normal daily expenditures in lieu of using your own personal credit cards or debit cards, then you're not building business credit. You have to know who they are, and you have to be able to go through the chronology initially to get it set up. There's a lot of crazy gurus online that are sitting in the back of Mazdas with their phones going, I can help you get $100,000 at 0% in 24 hours. Go buy yourself a new truck, right? It's not real. It's not true. And even if they can get you over that hurdle, it costs a tremendous amount of money, and it's tied to you personally. We took a trucking and transport company several years back, but we took them from $1,500 in available business credit to over $800,000 in amalgamated business credit in 10 months, just by following our steps. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, that's all fine, well, and good, Earl, but I have horrible personal credit. They're completely separate from each other. One doesn't affect the other, not when it comes to just business credit. Business credit in and of itself is its own standalone social security number. We'll call it your EIN. And even if you have horrible credit, you can build stellar credit on your business. And it doesn't take that long to do. The other myth associated with business credit is that you have to make a lot of money. You have to do a lot of revenue in business to actually be able to build business credit. And that's actually categorically untrue as well. Brent and I built a business that's never done $1 in revenue. And we've got several $100,000 worth of vehicles just on that business credit. Now, we pay the debt ourselves, right? We don't do anything untoward, but that business, just for the purpose of doing it, has never done $1 in revenue. But we built business credit on it so that we can utilize it. So business credit's an amazing thing to pull in, and it's probably the single most important thing anybody can do in business, which is separate themselves personally from the business. That's why we set up an LLC to begin with. I guess you got questions.
I do. I have two questions. I'm sorry, I being a little bit ahead of the curve here, but I just wanted to broach two things. One, what is the typical time frame from start to finish that someone can begin to really substantiate some corporate credit? Because I mean, I've heard misconceptions where people are like, well, this is going to take years. And what if I'm not even in business in years? So how does it benefit me now? So if someone's in dire straits and they're over their heels right now in debt, what is a realistic time frame that we're talking about here?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at it, Toni. I love analogies and things like that. So picture
Clearly.
yourself saying, I'm going from Washington State to New York, and I have an option. I can do it in a covered wagon drawn by a couple mules. I can do it in my Kia Hyundai. I can do it in a Corvette, or I can do it in a Learjet. Each one has its own methodology. You can get there fast, or you can get there slow. The slowest way to do it is to try to figure out how to do it on your own by getting self-help books and watching gurus give you little fractions of it. But the reality is, a person who's diligent, who comes in and actually, let's say they're using our program, or they use ours. If they're diligent, take that example of the transport company. They were diligent, right? They went from $1,500 to 800 and some odd thousand in 10 months. People start seeing results of business credit and getting pieces of it set over into their business within a couple months.
That's great. And I think that's an important call out, because when you think about creating another task for yourself, especially as busy as contractors are. I was a contractor, so I get the day-to-day, just million hats that we're wearing constantly. And so I feel like for a lot of people, this feels like another cumbersome, elongated process. They're not going to see the benefits for a long time. So I'm glad that you mentioned how fast this can actually begin to work for you.
Here's the truth. Of the thousands of people that we've helped, the majority of the owners don't do it themselves anyway. They have their wife or their bookkeeper or their front of house do it. And their time dedication really to the process consists of maybe 5 hours the first week, 5 hours the second week, and then it diminishes, maybe an hour a week just doing the maintenance pieces. Because when you get set up with Dun & Bradstreet, you've got to wait for them to get back a hold of you. Yes, okay, I'm set up.
Right.
It's not labor intensive. It's just chronologically intensive. So you have to follow the steps.
And is that where a lot of people kind of miss the mark and getting it done as quickly and efficiently as possible?
It's a huge spot. But the other side of it is when it comes to credit in the credit world, there's so many different little red flags that can pop up. There's something called LexisNexis, which is the primary scoring mechanism. They're the ones that look at you. They're like the deep secret CIA, FBI, all rolled into one. There's 125 data points that they look at, and they tell the people that offer business credit yes or no. So for instance, if your state license has a comma in between your name and your federal license doesn't, red flag. If you're using a post office box and not a physical address or a virtual address, red flag. If you're using your cell phone, red flag. If you're using your Gmail versus a real one, red flag. And all of these things comprise the likelihood of whether or not you're able to get it. So there's so many different little intricacies that you've got to follow and get it set up. But once it's set up, it's great. Then it's like collecting baseball cards, Toni. You're looking at vendors going, got it, want it, need it, got it, want it, need it.
Right. That's a great point. I know we're almost out of time. I apologize, but I'm going to send everybody the name of your company. I don't think you mentioned it, but the name of your company, and then just quickly the price point. I think it's $99 a month, and there's no cancellation fee. It's month to month. So if you theoretically, not to try to take money out of your pocket, but theoretically, if a contractor wanted to utilize your program, and they started it. They were able to substantiate their corporate credit. It was working fine and dandy. And they were like, okay, no need for this product anymore. They're no longer tethered. They don't have to continue to utilize your product to be able to have their own substantiated corporate credit now.
There's so many people trying to make money off the backs of other people's hard work already.
Right.
We didn't want that. What we do want is Main Street to stay intact and Wall Street to stay off of Main Street. And the best way to do that is to create longevity for independent business owners and give them the advantages that we aren't typically afforded. So our program adds a lot of other things in, and they'll be able to see that when they're in there. And they can always make the determination whether they want to stay or go. If they just want to utilize us and pay $99 a month and build out their credit, they can. But few people get away from it because there's so many other advantages.
Oh yeah. I saw it. It's like one of the most robust platforms I've seen. I mean, like we spent, I think 35 minutes looking at it and all the intricacies and nuances of it. And I don't even think we scratched the surface. Finances and all of that stuff like make me really, really nervous. I'm glad that there's someone like you out there that has put all this stuff together in a nice, neat little package that's easy to use. It's easy to understand for people like me. I just want to say one more thing before we let everybody go. One of the things that I saw on your platform that I thought would be super applicable to contractors is the way that you guys had the contract. You had a contract reader that took like all of the mushigas. Sorry, I'm using a Yiddish word there, but it took all the mushigas of like the legality wording that us, us peons don't know how to, really suss through. And then it put it in terminology that we could understand to be able to really, really figure out what they're saying, right? So could you just briefly talk about that and then we'll let everybody know?
I'll just show you.
Please.
For the sake of argument, you guys, let me look over here on the window, see if I can figure out which one this crazy one is. I think it's this window.
It's the share.
It's okay?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
So like Toni was saying, there's a ton of stuff in here. Frankly, if you were to try to get all this stuff separately, you'd spend about $3,200 a month just to have a portion of what we have. But we have a document reader in here, which is a contract reader. So anytime you're dealing with real estate or contracts or arbitrage or any of that type of stuff, just drop it in here, drop the PDF or JPEG or text file in here, and then hit analyze. Our AI is designed to reanalyze that, and it'll spit back an output for you that is in layman's terms to give you all the red flags and the warnings and explain exactly what it is you're looking at and how it can negatively affect you. We've spent just a fortune on attorneys throughout our career, and I just wanted you guys to be able to see that. So it's very, very simple.
That's a great value add. And again, I know you mentioned like a $3,200 price point. I just want to be clear. This is $99 a month.
It is, yeah. If you were to try to do a portion, because there's bookkeeping, there's CRM, there's all kinds of stuff in there, AI marketing, all the different tools, all the things that we, through 37 years of business, have spent a fortune on separately because everybody does it separate. So when we built this, we said, let's make sure they can build business credit, but then let's make sure they can go get a big loan when they need it without it being predatory. Let's make sure they have all their stuff in line. So it's all there.
Yeah. And I wish Brent was here because he could really speak on it from like the contractor's perspective that has actually used corporate credit to benefit him. He was sharing a story with me that he bought his first vehicle within 6 months using corporate credit with no company revenue, which is like crazy to think about because you think about like truck to debt ratio and how it's like personally attached to you. And if you don't pay it, then like your house is on the line and everything else that's attached to you that you've grown.
But 4 vehicles on it now. The first one was a $100,000 Dodge T-Rex. Zero revenue in the company. Just went through the steps and built business credit. I think the most recent purchase is the fully dolled out Bronco, leather loaded, lifted, everything on it. That's the most recent one. Again, just corporate credit.
I want one of those.
No credit check. Boom. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, everybody that stayed on just to get to the end of this. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I've added our Slack link. I've added the demo link to Book with Scott. And I also added the Jessica Easler video, who is cutting 1 to 2 routes successfully a day. I'll send everybody an email afterwards that's going to have access to Brent and Earl and their company. So if you're interested in utilizing this product, you'll have access to that and you can connect with them at your leisure. Thank you guys all so much for coming to the GroundSwell webinar. We're going to have another one very shortly, so I'll send correspondence out on that. And you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday, and thank you so much.